Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Pokésports, a competitive Pokemon podcast. I'm Mike, and I play with one Pokemon on the field.
I'm Kevin. I play with two Pokemon on the field.
And Kevin, it's a very unique week. We do not
It is?
have any Oscars. We do not have any, what's the other one? Football. We just have a normal, nothing happening week.
We're not recording over any major events. Are you sure? Let me go check.
Uh-oh. You know what? That'd be a good idea,
fun.
actually. For every podcast, let's go and find what actual day it is, because every day has like a thing,
national day,
right?
Yeah.
And then we'll say, Happy Donut Day. So happy
National
Donut
Margarita Day is in like 2 weeks.
Oh no, we're gonna be competing with the margarita streamers.
See, the thing is, Canada has like two different has different national holidays compared to us, right?
I mean, we've got straight up Family Day tomorrow. I don't know if you have that.
No, we don't do that. We call that Thanksgiving, Mike.
Yeah, no, we have Family Day tomorrow. It's like we get work.
You have both.
It's pretty great.
Oh, what?
Yeah. How's your Valentine's Day?
That's good. I did pretty basic stuff. Went out to dinner, relaxed.
Oh, that's nice.
Ate some chocolate.
Aww.
Saw some movies.
Saw some movies. I didn't see any movies on Valentine's Day. I think I watched Frozen 2 actually. Yeah,
I should have saw the
Frozen
Sonic movie, Mike.
I did. I saw that on Saturday.
Oh, okay. I didn't even see it yet.
Oh man, it's pretty good. Honestly, I really enjoyed it. I think as we were walking out, me and my friends, I was saying it's probably one of the better, if not the best, video game movie. Up there with Detective Pikachu.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Better than a lot of the video games for sure. But
yeah.
Anyway, that's Sonic. We're not talking about competitive Sonic. We're here talking about competitive Pokemon. So
we could talk about Excadrill if you want. It's kind of like a similar thing.
We could also not. So hey, you know what came out this week? Just kind of out of nowhere. Pokemon Home. Yep. Pokemon Home just dropped on Tuesday. People started trading their Pokemon from Bank, which is now free for a month. So people were just getting their Pokemon off of that. I was so happy when Home dropped. Like I have been waiting for this moment forever.
I was calling it Wednesdays because they always drop things on Wednesday, and they were like, nah, today is Tuesday. Today we're doing Home. And it was so random. I remember it was like, what? It was like 6 p.m. for us, and we're just getting messages on the Discord saying, hey, you can download Home right now?
Yeah, exactly, right? It just kind of happened.
Just like, what? Yeah, it's so weird.
I mean, it came out on the phone first. No, it was on the Switch first, and then it was on the App Store a couple hours later. So like you downloaded it on the Switch, and you're like, oh, I don't know what to do with it now. And then it came out on the mobile devices, and I was like, "Oh, that's what I can do with it." Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you think about the price? Because I know we were talking about that on the Discord a little bit.
I think it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't used it yet. I'm gonna say that right now because I haven't needed to use it yet. But when I start to want to do like full box trades, or when I want to bring my bank stuff in. It's a worth price, even if you could do all of your stuff in a month. And I think that it's a really good like marketing strategy that they made Bank at least free for all the people that canceled those memberships. Yeah. Now have it for this month just to mass import the stuff.
Yeah, I think
like just 1 month worth,
because you can get a 3, 6, or 12-month subscription. I feel like a lot of people are just going to go for the 3-month, and that's kind of all that they're going to need. Because what are you using Home for if not to transfer over your Pokemon from Bank or from your other games? So I feel like people are going to use the first 3 months to kind of get all their ducks in a row, and then once they have everything in there, then why pay for it anymore?
Yeah, exactly.
I went and got the 12-month because I'm like, oh, this is forever. And I don't know if I quite feel justified in that purchase.
Well, now you just got to complete your live decks. And then
you'll feel
justified.
I guess so. So I can like walk around and just show people my phone, and be like, "Hey, take a look. What up?"
Look at all of my Arceus forms.
Exactly. And actually, this week has been pretty big for Pokemon, not only from home, but Pokemon Company actually dropped the news that Series 3 for VGC, or for the online battles, will open up on March 1st, making all regional forms legal. So your Vulpixes and your Ninetaleses, not Galarian, Alolan or otherwise, plus all the transfer-only Pokemon, which were indeed the legendaries and Gen 7 starters, Gen 1 starters that we saw before, legal. So you can actually use those in game now, which is awesome. Some of those
too?
No, actually, no,
okay.
not the legendaries, actually, but
Thank God.
the transfer only, the
yeah.
Gen starters. Anyway, that includes Venusaur and Incineroar, which have been the two that people are talking about the most. I would say Blastoise is a close third.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what to think about this Incineroar. What do you think, Evan?
I think here's the thing, because this whole Series 3 thing,
yeah,
caused a lot of controversy online. Because first they released a statement that was like, they're gonna be legal, just not right now.
Mm-hmm.
But they weren't specific. A lot of people are saying, oh, they're saying regions only available in Galar before are gonna be legal, not new regionals in Galar now. But then they, like, I think the next day, the following day, they were very specific about what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
They were like, guys, Incineroar is coming back, Venusaur is coming back.
This is when
stop finding ways around
it. Yeah.
But I think it's all right. It's not as good as it used to be. I think Sejun Park kind of popularized the thought that it's not as good as it used to be, and a bunch of people kind of jumped on that bandwagon after he said it.
Sejun Park, the winner of, what is it, 2014?
Yeah, Pachirisu boy.
I brought a Pachirisu. Yeah, continue.
But yeah, he was saying that, like, it's not as strong as it's gonna be because the nerf to the pinch berries, along with that, Intimidate has been nerfed. There's so many competitive Pokemon in the game in terms of, like, defined and competitive users, like things that raise their stats when you lower their stats.
Right. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. How was Intimidate nerfed? Just in the ways that people can deal with it, or what?
Yeah, just the ways people can deal with it.
Dynamax,
especially with Dynamax. Yeah, there's just a lot of things that you could counteract that. Yeah, the game itself right now is very special attack heavy.
Yes, very much. Very much. The biggest question by far that I've been seeing online is what makes Incineroar so good, and it makes me happy whenever I see those, because listeners of this podcast will know that we've talked about that already. But just to recap for anybody who's new and is still asking that question, Incineroar, its Intimidate was historically a very good ability. Now, as for reasons that Kevin mentioned, not as good. But there is a reason that Arcanine would run Intimidate. Incineroar has super high attack, but it also has Fake Out and U-Turn, which is not a combo that you see on a ton of Pokemon. The Dark typing negates Prankster Priority, which again also pretty nuts, especially if you're trying to shut it down before it does something like U-Turn out. You just can't do that. Now this gen, Incineroar does not get knockoff, which would have been super broken if it did, because there's no Mega Stones, there's no Z crystals, so like you can't actually knock those off because they don't exist in this gen.
That's one of the bigger nerfs to it.
Yes,
though. Yeah,
absolutely. But I will say, when Move Tutors come out with the expansion passes, not saying that they're going to be in, we don't actually know if they are, but watch out if they are on Move Tutors, because then that's going to make Incineroar incredibly relevant, incredibly popular, and super scary.
Yeah, we have no idea what those tutors are going to be.
No,
but
exactly.
Knockoff has been notorious for being a tutor move. Who knows if they'll change it.
Now, this gen, it does get Parting Shot, which a lot of people have.
So bad.
Yeah, a lot of people have been talking about that. So some people might want to use Incineroar as like a send him in, fake it out, Parting Shot switch it back, fake out, parting shot, switch it back.
I'm just gonna run a whole team of Defiant users.
I mean, right? It's gonna make it so good. Well, now you can you not get knockoff on your Bisharp?
No, I think it's not an egg move.
Oh,
sadly.
No. Oh,
And a
no.
Smogon is allowing it though.
Mm.
Because you don't have to use Galar Pokemon for Smogon.
No, true. Now, people are already kind of getting ahead of this by adding competitive Milotic to their teams. For those of you who tune into the Pokesports YouTube page, I just put out a video today about my experience this week in VGC as I'm trying to kind of learn from scratch, as it were. And one thing that I'm noticing a lot this week compared to last week is that so many more Milotic users. Everybody's just bringing in that competitive ability, specifically because of Intimidate and because of Dynamax actually makes it ridiculously good. The fact that Dynamax exists. If someone goes for a move that lowers your and your partner's stats, then your Milotic is suddenly getting a +2 to special attack. So it's a pretty nutso ability.
Yeah, Milotic's one of those Pokemon that Incineroar can't really do anything to.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't get any kind of access to grass moves, to electric moves, so it can't touch a Milotic. Milotic can just sit there on the field and absorb hits and then just scald at +2 all at once.
Yep. Now, I will say that with these new additions and these new Pokemon coming in, 2 Pokemon you got to be on the lookout for. Shell Smash Blastoise. You heard about Shell Smash Blastoise? It's a fun time.
I haven't tried it, but I've heard of it.
Oh, it's very fun. I've been seeing some people use it. It's a laugh riot.
Yeah.
I want to see very fast turtle doing a lot of damage. But also Chlorophyll Venusaur. That one is just one that we've seen before. We're seeing now again using Weather Ball, Earth Power. The fact that Max Ooze is a thing is pretty nuts, especially with a fairy heavy meta.
And to raise your own special attack.
Yeah, exactly, for sure. It's basically the replacement to Mega Launcher, which made Blastoise good in the previous gens with its Mega Evolution. So that ain't bad. Now, before we get into what we're talking about today, I want to mention 2 things. One, next week will be our Pokesports Spotlight giveaway number 3. It's the last Sunday of the month. And of course, as you guys know, on every last Sunday of the month, we hold a giveaway where we give away all of the Pokemon that we talked about on our Pokesports Spotlight. So next week, make sure you stop by on the Twitch chat or on Twitter at PokesportsPod to check out all that information. Stay tuned.
And then, to all the Patreons that we have too. Also, the Patreon only giveaway starts next week also.
That's right. That's right. That's also going to be a fun one. We're going to give all of the information on a public post on our Patreon this Wednesday when this podcast drops. So if you're listening to this on Spotify or if you're listening to this on YouTube or anywhere else that you get your podcasts, you can just go over to patreon.com/Pokesportspodcast to find all of that information. Last but not least, if you are here on Twitch and you are subbed to Pokesports Podcast, you have access to a new emote, which Kevin has dropped, and I'm going to drop right now as well. It's PokeSP Yes. It's a happy Excadrill because Kevin doesn't like me. So yeah. So we're working toward getting that second emote for the tier 1s where we can get an unhappy Excadrill in there. But right now it's a tier 2 emote. Okay. Now then, let's get into what we're talking about today, which of course is field moves. Now, field moves are an interesting little friend there. And to kind of illustrate that, I want to tell you guys about the legacy of the Tapus. Kevin, if there's one special thing about any of the Tapu Pokemon, and this is a very leading question, what is that?
They put up terrain moves.
Thank you. In Gen 6, Gen 6 is where terrain was added. Not a lot of people know that because not a lot of people were using terrain in Gen 6. The Pokemon Company looked at that and was like, wait a second, these terrains, like, they can be good, but let's figure out ways to use them. So in Gen 7, they came up with the Tapu Pokemon. Now let's see if I can look at these and tell you by name. It's Tapu Koko, Tapu Fini, Tapu Lele, and Tapu Bulu.
I'm impressed.
I know, me too, actually. I'm kind of stunned. I'm like,
Mike's not that good on names.
Now, the interesting thing about these Tapu Pokemon is that they were the only kinds of Pokemon at the time, I believe, who could automatically set a terrain. There was also a couple moves that could do it. I know Mew got an exclusive Z move that could. But it's essentially a new form of weather. It can be used in conjunction with weather, so it can be pretty good. However, there are no two similar elements. There's no like rainy terrain and rain. The 4 types of terrain, of course, are electric, fairy, psychic, and grass. Each of those kind of baked in with each of those Tapu Pokemon. But now that we're in Gen 8 and there's no Tapu Pokemon yet, we have terrain setters in max moves.
We have budget Tapu Pokemon.
We also have budget Tapu Pokemon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now, those budget Tapu Pokemon, of course, are Pinkerton. And I actually just realized that it's pronounced Pinkerton, like pincushion.
Like sea urchin?
Yeah.
And pincushion? Oh.
Yeah.
Aha.
What a good name.
Good job, Game Freak.
You did it.
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. Pinkerton with the electric terrain, Galarian Weezing with the fairy terrain, Indeedee with the psychic terrain, and Rillaboom, and subsequently the Rillaboom line with grassy terrain. They're also learned through TMs, but they're also learned moves and TMs, but they're honestly not really worth using. I haven't really found a good Pokemon set that uses a terrain move. Much like how you don't run Sunny Day or Rain Dance or any of those kind of things anymore with automatic setters.
There's only a few cases, but yeah, in general, terrain it's nice, but it's not nice enough for a move slot. It's a nice add-on. It's not a nice, let me build a team around it, per se.
Yeah.
I mean, some people build a team around it, but they'll use the auto setters because it's just so much easier.
For sure. Now, an item that is typically, not typically, actually, quite the opposite. An item that there is for use with this is Terrain Extender. Terrain Extender will bring your terrains from 5 turns to 8 turns because these, like weather, only last for 5 turns. Brings it to 8 turns if you're running that item, but it's often just directly better to run the items that you would normally run on the Pokemon, so like Life Orb and leftovers or what have you. It's just not great.
You want to know how not great it is? I didn't know it existed.
Right?
I was like, oh, that's a thing.
It was the same with me. I was looking this week for my research and I was like, wait a second, there must be something that like extends this, right? Like there's gotta be. And so I looked it up and lo and behold, there it was.
I would have just said light clay. Yeah. But I guess, it has its own item.
Now that's an interesting point actually. Because we were talking about this just today. Trying to classify what is a field move and what is not a field move. Now, obviously, these field moves like terrain, they take over the whole field. So electric terrain benefits your Pokemon, but it also benefits the other side as well. There are other moves and other things that do that as well, like Wonder Room, which swaps defense and special defense for 5 turns, useless, and also Trick Room. Trick Room is a super popular move that's used on a lot of Pokemon. It switches speed tiers. So lowest speed is now the one that goes first.
It opens up the other side of the Pokedex too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Makes a lot of Slowmons useful.
But like I was saying, we were talking about what is and isn't a terrain move. or a field move, because those 4 plus gravity, which gravity lowers, makes flying types neutral. Does it make them normal types?
No, it just makes them touch the ground, I think.
It makes them touch the ground, but are they
so they're not immune,
they're just grounded.
So
like they're still a flying type. They'll still be susceptible to electricity. Well, there you go. Which brings the Pokemon down and does all that stuff. But field moves, again, that does all the whole field versus things like reflect, things like light screen, things like Aurora Veil, which only affect your side. I think the biggest one we were talking about was Tailwind, because Tailwind is a major staple in Pokemon right now, but doesn't necessarily facilitate a full field move.
Yeah, we were talking about it earlier today. We kind of did like separate them in terms of full field moves and partial field moves. Like they'll only affect half of the field rather than the full field.
Yeah. And then to add on to that, Magic Room is the last one, but again, useless. It suppresses items. It suppresses items for 5 turns. Yeah. If there were Pokemon that had this baked in, like the Tapus or these 4 behind me right now, then it might be worth considering. But I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it. Like it would make foul play a very useful at times move, because now you've got foul play to play against special attackers in Wonder Room, I'm thinking.
The only thing that I can think of that I've been thinking of is Wonder Rooming a specially defensive Pokemon that has body press, like maybe a Goodra. You can Wonder Room a Goodra that has 160 base and then body press. See, I thought it would be very spicy. On top of that, also having the Assault Vest, but I found out the Assault Vest add-on gets added after the fact, so
it would still
get added to special defense.
Assault Vest if you're running Wonder Room.
Oh, also true. But your adjacent Pokemon can run.
Oh, that's true. Yes. Oh, it gets added after.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a good way to make Goodra really tanky, right? Because they'll still get the special defense boost from Assault Vest on top of having 160 defense instead.
That's true.
It's
now,
a thought, guys.
Guys, we want you to win here on Pokesports. We want to help you win. So, after the break, we're going to show you how you can use terrain to your advantage and lots of other ways that you can support using terrain for you. That's all coming up after the break. Until then, enjoy this. Welcome back to Pokesports, everybody. Before the break, we were talking to y'all about the legacy of the Tapus and all of this fun stuff with terrain and the Pokemon that have go along with it. Look at all these Pokemon; they're so cool. Now, I want to kind of get into the specifics of why you want to be using terrain in your game. Last week we talked about why you want to use weather in your game, and each of these weather elements have something different that influences the field and influences the Pokemon on it. But terrain has so much more, and I think it's super worth bringing. Now, there's a lot of evidence to say that although terrain is super good, it's really only worth using if it's free. So if you have a Pokemon that can set it, it's typically going to perform pretty well. So we were looking back at that Indeedee. Indeedee using Psychic Terrain, a huge help in all of these in your matches. You get basically free buffs on your Pokemon on top of things like weather, but weather is typically like you have a team that's built around it, but terrain has elements of it that can influence any Pokemon. And we're kind of going to get into that. A common example is actually a common Whimsicott build running Charm and Fake Tears and other Pokemon like that have Fake Out. If you have a Pokemon that's out that has a Psychic Terrain, then none of that's actually going to go through. It just
Mhm.
nullifies priority.
Yeah, no fake out, no prankster, no nothing. It's pretty nice. And like past generations, it was really good against Gale Wing's Talonflame.
Yes.
Even that wouldn't count because that counted as priority.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really nice as well. And it's nice having it when your Pokemon enter the field because then speed isn't a thing. Like speed doesn't factor in. You don't have to outspeed the enemy Pokemon in order to set it, because if that was the case, they would already get their priority move off before you're able to get the Psychic Terrain up.
Yes.
So it would be useless. So Psychic Terrain is one of those that you kind of really need it to have an auto set.
Yeah.
The most, I'd think. Just because of that priority nullification.
Exactly. I have a second example here with Togekiss, actually. Common Togekiss builds will run Yawn to shut down D-Maxers, and Electric Terrain prevents sleep. So you can use that setting up via Max Lightning, which you can actually use on the enemy Togekiss. So not only can you shut down a Togekiss, you can set up Electric Terrain and make its previous move kind of useless. You undo its work. The whole thing about Pokemon is if you can just like make it so your opponent can't play, you win.
Yeah, whoa.
Cool.
And Electric Terrain also sees use for Pokemon that get Sleep Powder. Right now, I think a few of the ones that people are using are things like Butterfree. Vileplume has seen some play, but I'm pretty sure once Venusaur comes back, Sleep Powder is going to be a big boy. It's going to be a very fast chlorophyll sleep powder.
I feel like people experimented with Vileplume for a little while, and then they kind of fell off. Same with Butterfree. Much more with Butterfree, actually. I see way more Vileplumes than I see Butterfrees. You would think that it's the Gigantamax that kind of makes it the gimmick, but no, it not gimmicky enough.
It's the only Rage Powder user in the game.
Right.
That's the biggest reason behind it. They got rid of a lot of redirection in this game, which is funny because they added a lot of Pokemon that can tolerate it, like Propeller Tail, like Stalwart,
yeah.
A bunch of stuff like that. Yeah, so it's just like, oh, you're going to add all these new stuff, but get rid of the reason to use it.
Yeah. And then just to talk about the other ones, Misty Terrain. Where's Misty Terrain? I don't even know Misty Terrain. There it is. Whatever, that's psychic. Misty Terrain prevents all the main status conditions, so burn, sleep, freeze, poison, paralysis, and also halves the damage from dragons. So there's that. I mean, it's not really used as much because fairies are just so good as they are. And we're really going to see that a little bit later. But last one, Grassy Terrain. Grassy Terrain isn't really used all that much yet, and I say yet because I believe that once Venusaur comes out, we're going to see a lot more Grassy Terrain use, just so he gets the extra grass boost and the extra health, because a lot of people like regeneration on their Venusaur. Giga Drain is going to be really, really good. Leftovers is going to be really, really good. Black Sludge is going to be really, really good with Grassy Terrain. But as it stands right now, Grassy Terrain is mainly used to, if anything, remove other terrains. If you have a terrain up that you don't like and you have the opportunity to go for a max overgrowth, typically you're going to see a lot of people going for that.
Yeah, typically Grassy Terrain's that one that's used by accident, right? It's like, oh, I accidentally set this up. I guess I have a free leech seed for everybody on the ground right now.
Yeah. The sad part is that it happens to everybody. Like everybody gets the 1/16 of max HP back at the end of every turn. It just doesn't.
So
really
it kind of does nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. It also reduces the power of Bulldoze and Magnitude and Earthquake by 50%. So all of your shaky ground moves, those get
use
halved.
it against Excadrill, but then they use high horsepower. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
See, if it reduced the power of all ground moves, that'd be fancy.
Well, when they
that'd
added
also be too good.
High horsepower, that just kind of, that just kind of changed Earthquake forever.
Yeah.
They gave a single target Earthquake.
With a very low chance to miss, but I understand why they gave it a chance to miss, just to give you the reason to still use Earthquake.
Yeah.
But you don't want to hit your mons.
You don't see it all that much. Now, this gen, Psychic, Electric, and Grassy Terrain moves, again, not Misty Terrain because Fairy's broken enough. Those 3 terrain moves boost the power of moves of that type that are used by 30% if the Pokemon is grounded. So if you have a Duraludon is my example that I use all the time, that uses a Max Lightning, sets up an electric terrain on the field. Subsequent Max Lightnings or Thunderbolts after the DMAX is done are going to do 30% more. So if you are setting up for a 2-hit KO and you notice that your Max Lightning did just shy of half damage, just know that you're going to take it out next turn.
That's like similar thing to weather moves. You'll do more damage the following turn because the weather will be set up. This is, I mean, it's not, comparatively speaking, like weather, you'd get the 50% increase. Here you get the 30% increase. We also have to remember, this is only calculating if your Pokemon is touching the ground.
Yes.
It doesn't calculate Rotom in electric terrain, and it doesn't calculate like a Braviary in some kind of terrain.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
for sure.
Just keep that in mind.
Keep that in mind. Now, a way to kind of use this to your advantage would be to, have other Pokemon on the field that have a synergy with it. So there are synergistic items in this game that work with these terrains, like Electric Seed and Psychic Seed, that will be used upon a terrain being active. So if you have a Pokemon that immediately sets up a terrain, that item will also immediately be used. Electric Seed, one of the examples that I give, Electric Seed and Grassy Seed, they raise defense by 1 and then 1 stage. And Psychic Seed and Misty Seed raise special defense by 1. Now the Pokemon that synergize with them, Kevin, I know you have a lot of fun with, and I want you to tell the people about them.
Now, the Unburden ability is very used with this strategy because, like Mike said, once you enter the field and the terrain is up, the seed will immediately proc. So that means your Unburden will also immediately proc, and you'll have a +1 in special defense or +1 defense. Big Unburden users right now: Hawlucha, Drifblim. I think Hitmonlee is in the game now with Home, and then Sceptile will probably come later on in the future. Common strategy that I like to use personally is Psychic Seed and Male Indeedee. And I actually have a bunch of videos on Pokesports right now showcasing the strategy. Male Indeedee can one-shot things. It's disgusting how much damage it does. And it has such good coverage. It's just, when you make it max special attack, modest, and then you have Psychic Stab, Psychic Terrain boost, plus Life Orb boost, plus Dynamax, is over. There's not much you can do. And then Drifblim on the side is the fastest Strength Sap user in the game with the Unburden proc. It's also one of the fastest Tailwinds, if not the fastest Tailwind that isn't Prankster. One of the fastest Will-O-Whispers. And, just having that near priority, but not yet priority, not yet Prankster priority is nice because you could hit dark types with all these things too. When you can use a Sableye, but Sableye can't Will-O-Wisp a Tyranitar. You can Will-O-Wisp a Tyranitar now with your Drifblim. It doesn't matter because it's not priority.
It's just super fast.
Yeah,
you remember when Indeedee came out and we were like, oh, it's just a Psychic Audino.
It's actually pretty good. Yeah.
It's actually pretty good.
And the reason I use male is because if I was going to use female, I would just have 2 support Pokemon on the field, and that doesn't do much.
I'm happy that one of the budget Tapus are actually worth using. I'm pretty sure that Pinkerton is not ever going to see any kind of play, and if it does, I'm going to be incredibly surprised. Galarian Wheezing, people were super excited for, but it's also
it has
super
better
disappointed.
abilities.
Yeah, it does. That's true. Whatever, it's neutralizing gas is way more effective on teams than Misty Terrain. And then Rillaboom we just haven't seen yet, but even if we did, people use Tapu Bulu for its abilities rather for its moves rather than its ability. So I doubt that Rillaboom will see much more play if it gets grassy terrain. It's just not really that important. Yeah.
I get you.
So yeah, that's Unburden. Nature Power obviously is another great way to use terrain. Misty Terrain, Nature Power becomes Moonblast. Electric Terrain becomes Thunderbolt. Grassy Terrain becomes Energy Ball, and Psychic Terrain becomes, well, would you look at that, Psychic? There are also some abilities that benefit off of terrain, like Alolan Raichu's Surge Surfer, which doubles the Pokemon's speed, makes Alolan Raichu super super fast. Probably the only reason to ever run a Pinkerton, if we're really trying to think about it. Pinkerton, Alolan Raichu, it's coming, people.
There it is, man.
March 1st.
You said it first.
I'm gonna give it a shot. I actually am kind of curious.
That's pretty strong, dude. And what's good about Alolan Raichu is that it's still fast enough to function on its own. And if they accidentally change it to Psychic, then whatever, you get boosted Psychic moves now, which are also stab.
Exactly. And then there's Grassy Pelt, which boosts the Pokemon's defense by 50%. Was Go-Go Gadget Go-Goat ever used in VGC 19?
No.
No.
Maybe by 3 people.
Yeah. But I mean, doesn't really matter because Go-Goat has kind of gone the way of the Dodo. So
womp womp
womp womp.
Bye Go-Goat.
Yeah. Now we'd be remiss if we didn't say that as much as terrain covers you from certain move effects, weather is what shields you from types. So if you want to set up something that will shield you from the fire, toss up some rain. But if you want something that'll shield you from the fire that your face will feel after you've been faked out, then that's when you want to set up your Psychic. So yeah, those protect you from moves. Weather really shields you from types. And that's all we have to say about terrain moves.
Terrain.
Yeah.
We did it.
Now, moving on, we are going to go right into our third for the month? Third for the month. Pokemon Pokésports Spotlight, which is, there's those people. It's Clefairy. Would you look at that? Clefairy, with the release of Home, this absolute unit is sitting here ready to happily wave you to death.
With its one tooth.
Only one. Clefairies will typically run Eviolite with the ability Friend Guard. EVs, you really want to make a hyper defensive spread because it's not doing anything offensively. 156 HP, 156 defense, 196 special defense. Mainly because you really want to up that special defense as much as you can without kind of sacrificing defense. And obviously, the HP kind of supports that as well. You toss on a sassy nature on that. Make sure that it has 0 attack IVs. With the attacks, Follow Me, Icy Wind, Heal Pulse, and Protect. With the Eviolite, it's going to make this Pokemon super tanky that you'll be able to, really, really support your team. Potential replacement moves, Helping Hand, After You, just other supporting moves that you can toss on this guy. Kevin, tell me about your little pink puff ball here.
Now, I've actually been using Clefairy. It's not coming up on the channel this week, but the following week it'll be coming up. I've had a lot of fun with it, to be honest. I do find myself in situations where I will just get taunted and I just become an Icy Wind bot, but that's kind of why I decided to go Icy Wind instead of using things like Moonblast, because you're not doing damage. You're not fully evolved Pokemon. You're not meant to do damage.
Right.
You're meant to literally sit there and shield your allies. But I've found myself in situations where things that normally should be going down, like a Galarian Darmanitan, will not go down. And I'm just being like, oh well then. Because Friend Guard is kind of that silent boost. You don't really see how much it's helping until, one of your Pokemon will live something that they should have gone down for.
Right.
But yeah, it actually does a lot with Friend Guard. Follow Me is, like I said before, it's very scarce in the game. So to have that follow me there on a Pokemon that can also boost your defenses in case they go for a spread move or in case they break through with Stalwart or with Propeller Tail or anything like that. It's nice. Totally nice.
Yeah.
What's nice about this?
Yeah.
What's nice about this Pokemon Spotlight is that if you guys don't want Clefairy and you just want a Clefable, you evolve this and you get the Unaware Clefable as well.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. You toss a Moonblast on it or a Flamethrower or anything that you want, really. And now you have an Unaware Clefable, which is just as much of an absolute unit. Unaware, of course, another thing that Clefable has gained with home. Well, the only thing that it's gained with home, but by far the biggest thing that it needed. It's going to make it a great Pokemon to go up against Dynamax users, Gigantamax users, people who are increasing stats for a living. You want to make sure that it can go up against those kind of Pokemon, especially with competitive Milotic coming up, like we mentioned earlier. Clefairy, Friend Guard Clefairy is probably not going to be as great against competitive Milotic if you have people there who are also going to taunt your Clefairy. Then suddenly you have this Icy Wind bot who's lowering speed but increasing Milotic's attack or special attack by stupid amounts. You don't want that. So if you are finding that, if the meta is kind of shifting that way, which it kind of looks like it is for the next little bit, a Unaware Clefable is pretty much the anti that. Can help to shut down those Milotics. You might want to run Thunderbolt instead of Flamethrower on that Clefable. But again, just a word of warning: if you do that, the EVs you might want to change them up so that you have a more specially attack invested Clefable. But there's
totally up to you.
Yeah, totally up to you. The option for you is there. Now we say all that because, again, as you guys know, next week, as we run our Pokemon Pokesports giveaway for the month, Clefairy will be one of the Pokemon that we give away. So just keep in mind that's how you can use it if you were to win that. Now, I want to get into my new and fun segment that I have. I enjoyed this so much when we did it last week. It's called the QR Corner, which today we actually don't have enough time for. But what I will say is I did fix up the visual component. So if you have a QR scanner on your phone and you're watching this on Twitch on the browser, you can feel free to scan the image on the left to be taken to the Apple review page or the Apple podcast page, or you can scan the QR code on the right to be sent to just your email, to send an email to pokesportspodcast@gmail.com, because on every QR corner we read our reviews from our fans who have decided to be so kind as to go on to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review. We read those ones out to you guys. We give them a little shout out and give them some appreciation, as well as the emails. So if anybody sends us an email to pokesportspodcast@gmail.com, we like to read those out and kind of give some tips on stories that you guys have been telling about your battling experience, or things that you like about the podcast, or what have you. Really, just lots of different stuff. We love to hear from you. Because we're, at the end of the day, just two people talking into computers. And we like to hear that there are, in fact, people who do listen.
Yes, sir. And it's 2020. We made it easy.
Yeah.
Now you just take pictures with your cellular devices and it goes straight there for you.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Now, with that, we are going to call it a day. But of course, we are not far away. You can follow us on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts at Pokesports. Just search up Pokesports. We'll be right there. You can rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, because that's just something that they can do. You can find us on YouTube, youtube.com/Pokesports. Subscribe to us there. We put out videos just too often.
Every day.
Every single day. If there's anything that we talked about there that you want to see on the podcast, you can reach out to us, you can do that for me on Instagram or Twitter at StillJustMike.
Kevin, Instagram, Twitter, X-Rays Ovation.
There you go. Or you can contact the podcast directly at Pokesports Pod on Twitter, Pokesports Podcast on Instagram, Pokesports Podcast on Patreon. On Patreon, we do lots of super fun stuff. We've been really having a lot of fun chatting with the Patreon people in the Discord, with the Patreon-only Discord channel. That's been a lot of fun.
And the Patreon-only post-game podcast.
Exactly. Which is coming up
to do next.
Right after this. Exactly. So we're all done here, but we're moving on to the post game. So I will end the podcast here so we can get ready for that. Thank you to everybody who's been listening and subscribing to us on Twitch, twitch.tv/Pokesports Podcast every Sunday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Get yourself that new Excadrill emote.
Spicy.
It's fancy. Nice and spicy. We will see you guys next week.